Hi guys, this demo is going to be for your first project, which is the tile construction piece, and I'm going to show you really quick how to make your tiles using the wood slats. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to take your clay from the bag. We do not need to wedge, and we're going to talk about wedging a little bit later. And you can just take it out of the bag. Just grab your wire cutters, and then I don't know, maybe like not too thick, maybe like a half-inch little slab. Get your clay out, and we'll put this away. Make sure you close your bag well so your clay here doesn't dry up on you, and put it aside. And then take your block, and then we're going to use the rolling pin to get it really nice and flat. So here I'm in my studio, and hopefully you can see everything. So here I'm gonna go roll. And the reason we have the two slats of wood here is so all of the tiles end up just as thick as that, and they're all uniform. So it's a really great idea. If you do it without the slats, you're probably gonna end up with tiles of different thicknesses. So let's keep turning this. And roll, roll, roll. My clay's a little bit hard, so it's gonna be a little difficult. Your clay's not gonna look this pale. You got a stoneware, which is what you should have, and it should be a gray color, not this pale white. This is porcelain. I don't want you to use porcelain. This is a little more difficult to deal with. So I keep turning it in different directions. The reason I do that is to make sure that when I fire this and when these are drying, they are actually shrinking equally. If you only roll in one direction, the towel is going to shrink in only one direction, so you're gonna end up with a different size that is not square. So we wanna continue to rotate in different directions and make sure your rolling pin rests on the slats, which means that sometimes if you're not paying attention, your slab roller is not landing on the slats, and then you're gonna end up with a uneven tile. So keep rolling it and keep turning it. I'm using a piece of fabric. It could just be an old sheet that you cut up, so the clay doesn't get stuck to the table. So keep rolling. See that I put a lot of shoulder force, so then I make sure that I'm actually really stretching it to its limit, that it goes as far down as the thickness of the wood slats. Okay, so keep turning. And the only thing about cutting it the way that I did is that we're gonna need a 5x5 tile, and this is not gonna be 10, so we're gonna be losing some clay, but and then you can recycle your clay, meaning put it aside, and then we can, when you learn how to wedge your clay, you can reuse that clay for another one. So we do need a 5x5 tile, but we don't want to cut it precisely right now, because when clay is really soft, it doesn't like to be precise, so we're gonna do it a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna cut with my knife and my ruler. And like I said, we're gonna put this aside and back in the back so we can reuse that clay. I think I really stretched it to its limit. It's really important that you work as precisely as possible. Clay does not like to be precise, but it's a good exercise of craftsmanship to just try to get it as perfect as possible for this particular assignment. So I'm gonna cut. And then I said, let's just do it for only one. And I'm gonna do it a little bit bigger than 5. Let's say 6, because I got enough to play with. And again, the reason I'm doing it a little bit bigger is because, as you can see, when I cut clay that is very soft, this stage is called plastic. It tends to kind of move around, so it's not gonna be as precise as you may want it. So let's let's just do it like this. It's gonna be, see, it's a lot bigger than 5. I did it bigger, so I'm gonna wait for the next stage, which is called leather hard. When the clay becomes a little harder, and it won't do all those bends. So when I cut it 5 by 5, it will be a precise 5 by 5. All right, so let's let this dry up a little to leather hard, and then we'll come back and cut it more precisely. All right. I have my drying tile over here, but in the meantime, I want to mention something about how to recycle the clay that was excess from the first tile. You know that I did assign to have these towels for the class. So these towels are really great. I use them all the time to make sure that the clay that I recycle is not too hard. And the way that I do it is I saturate this with water. I have a little bucket of water here, and squeeze the water out, and have it really not dripping, but damp enough that when you put clay inside of it, the clay would absorb a lot of the water. And so even if this is a little hard, maybe a little, see how it's cracking, it's a little too hard to play with. When you store it using this towel method and you put it back in the bag, that's the important part. If you don't put it inside a bag, it's gonna dry up like this. But if you keep it inside a tight bag, this clay is gonna be perfectly great to use for the next towel, for any other thing that you wanna make. All right, so what I typically do is I take the bag again, and just put it in there, and close it up really tight. And then if you have some sort of elastic to close it, or otherwise you can just stand it in the bag so it won't open. So I went back using this square ruler to get the tile to be exactly square. It's not necessary to use a square ruler, I just find it helpful, but you can just go back with your regular ruler. And once it's leather hard, the clay likes to be a lot more precise. It doesn't have the flexibility that it had before. So you can cut it precisely using your ruler and your knife like this. Making sure that you have 5 on each side and that the clay is really flat. Try not to bend it. When you flex your tile, it has a tendency to want to warp in the drying process. So once you have it cut to exactly the shape that you want to put it in your drywall. Put in your drywall. And if you're not going to work on it immediately, you need to give it a good spray so it retains the moisture. Since we're going to be applying different textures and also maybe perhaps adding forms to the top, or adding more clay on top, we want to make sure that it's still wet. So you want to use your spray bottle, and mine is here. I'm going to give it a spray. And then take a piece of plastic and cover it. And then when I'm ready to work, I'm going to uncover and start working on it. However, if you're going to take a long time to work on this tile, or you prefer to make all of them first and then work on them, you need to put plastic underneath too, because this drywall would absorb the water from the tile. And then even if you cover it on top, at some point it's going to be completely bone dry. So you want to, if you're gonna not work on it the same day, you just put plastic underneath, give it a spray, and then it would remain, don't overspray it, but a little bit of a spray would definitely keep it moist enough so you can still work on it.